it's almost like we're skipping over our normal lives and everything has to be like global.
You brought up such a great point a few minutes ago about in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, the approach to parenting was more like behavior management. And I want to kind of continue that because honestly, and this isn't just for parents, but how we were parented is going to affect how we think about things like how we take care of ourselves and self-care and all this. So I'm just going to read, like you sent this to me in an email and I just loved the way you worded it. So like 50s, 60s, and 70s was behavior management. So that means you care about what your kid, how they behave, but not really about their hearts. It's just sort of act right and make me look good, kids. And for church, this translated into super legalism, fundamental, hyper fundamentalism, appearing all holy and great while leadership, frankly, was, molesting their kids and having affairs and all of these things that were so, under the surface, under this veneer of everything looking great. They looked great, but they were awful inside. But let's move on to the next phase, because this is so brilliant how you pointed this out and how people were basically parented in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. Yep. This was the rise of the self-esteem movement and the, reaching your inner potential. And, I was born in 1975, so I think that I was kind of in the cross section of these two overlaps of the behavior management and the self-esteem. And so in parenting, this meant there was tons of praise, making kids feel great, thinking that meant that they'd be secure, but turns out self-esteem is self-earned and it backfired and they crumbled as adults. And so in church, what this looked like was the puffing up of the ego, what's your destiny, find your calling, you're born for something great, what does God want for my life? As opposed to, and you wrote, I don't know, just doing what the Bible says and not doing what it says not doing. You want to comment on that one a little more?
Yeah, I was actually talking about this with my husband last night, and it was like, I remember even during this time, so the self-esteem movement, it was, they realized, okay, a lot of these kids are doing a lot of bad stuff and they feel bad about themselves. So if they just felt good about themselves, they wouldn't do the bad stuff. But, it turns out that you can't just tell someone they're great if they're doing bad. Okay. If you're doing something mediocre and you know it, and somebody comes and tells you you're amazing, you're actually going to feel embarrassed because you know it's not true, right? You don't just decide it's true. You know what? Like, I'm actually really good at sewing because you said that. No, you know that you're not. So it's fake and it's false and it's flattery, and that feels icky to us, right? So this whole telling everybody you're great to love yourself, like, that isn't how it works. It is self-earned in the sense of, now I'm not talking about our values like we would know as a children of God. We have a value that he has given us because of our position, because he loves us. But just this esteem, how we view ourselves, like our general confidence, it is self-earned. You go through some struggles, you figure it out, you have confidence, you can figure it out. You have a hard time and then you figure out some ways to cope and you come through it and you think, okay, I did that. So actually life gives you, not everybody, if you have parents that are really hard, there's a lot of other factors, but in a general sense, self-esteem is self-earned. And so I think part of this is why I think it's kind of, and in the church, I don't know if I'm sure you remember, but it's like, what is your calling? Like your grand destiny. And it almost is like this. What does this have to do with God? Like, this is all about you. You want to be like, what, Christian famous, or like, you can't, it's not. And I remember I went through this. It was like right out of college, and me and my friend, like, we were just like, I know we're going to do great things. And we're like figuring out our destiny.
Oh yeah.
And
Same,
I remember praying. I remember praying and being like, okay, God, like, I just need you to, like how little thoughts of doubt would come in at times, and I just need you to really just show me yourself in a way that I could never doubt it. And I'm just going to tell you, like, I don't recommend that prayer because boom, boom, boom. I felt like my whole life's been one big series of being humbled. And it's made me be like, no, I don't want to do some big, don't put me on a stage in front of 100,000 people. And then somehow I'm supposed to help their spiritual life. Like, they should just read the Bible and leave me out of it. So I think being humbled, like having in a true sense of not puffing yourself up, not telling yourself how wonderful you are. Like, I don't sit around and hate myself. It's like this neutral. You don't compare yourself to others and think you're amazing. It's just like, some things I do good, some things I'm not that great at. God and I are working on it. It's a neutral thing. It's like, you don't want to be, it's almost this sense of, who wants to feel like they're in charge of other people's spiritual, do you know what I mean? It just comes from this sense of me, me, me. Whereas actually the Bible, it's about Jesus. It's about God. And you can live a normal life that like 99.999% of people live. That's just being a genuine believer, praying for
Yeah.
people near you who need it. Whatever your gift is, using that. If it's music, you play music with the church or whatever the case may be. You know, if it's teaching, then using your gifts in a normal way. It's almost like we're skipping over our normal lives and everything has to be like global.
Mm,
I think that
mm,
sometimes it's like you don't call any of your normal. You don't call any of your friends that could actually show up with a meal. It's like
mhm.
you're only dealing with everybody. And I'm not saying, of course it's great we can talk to our friends from other places. Like obviously it is. But it's almost like we've lost touch with the world, the ground we live on, the
Yeah,
area we live
yeah,
in,
yeah.
And so I think that's just has something that's grounding for us. So yes, back to the self-esteem thing. And I think it's also, I saw a little comedy skit one time that was like, it was funny. It was making fun of the self-esteem movement, but it was like, turns out like sociopaths really think greatly of themselves. So
Yeah,
thinking greatly of yourself doesn't actually,
yeah,
it isn't
yeah.
achieving some kind of goal. And actually the better you think about yourself, truly you could act worse.
Yeah.